It's now time to move on to discuss one of the probably most stressful parts of being a freelancer, which is money and funding for your project. And we are very happy to welcome Stefano Valentino. He's a freelance journalist and the founder of Mobile Reporter. And he will share some tips on how you can optimize your grant application game, which I'm sure is something that many of you are interested in. So welcome, Stefano.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me the chance to make a presentation today. So let's forget about social media, Instagram, all these high-tech innovations. Now we are going back to old-fashioned, long-term, time-consuming journalism, which is exactly what I'm doing. So I will tell you some tips how to make the miracle, meaning making money with investigative journalism, which nowadays has become a kind of hard endeavor. So the current presentation is called From Publishing to Earning to Publishing. So the idea is moving from what we call the news-based journalism to project-based journalism. So the problem is our journalists, we have a lot of ideas, even too many sometimes. The problem is selecting the right ones to boost income. And I don't want to sound like a materialistic guy. Actually, it's precisely because I'm very realistic and I want to do the stories that I like. I want to choose my topics. I don't want to take commissions from editors all the time. That's why I try to create my business model, which is based on projects rather than on news coverage. So that's the question, the dilemmatic question. There are two models. You can pick the one you want. So the conventional model is that when you have an idea, you want to pitch it right away to editors, and you start calling and emailing like crazy all your contacts. The thing is that you have a pro of this, that when you get commission, then you are sure that you're going to pay, but sometimes the remuneration are very low. So that's why I put a 2-0 here rather than the 3 that you're going to get in the other model, which is the risky way, which is precisely the model that I adopt. So instead of basically pitching my story to an editor for the day to publish a story for the short term, the day after or the week after, I amplify, I do further research, and when I have a more research project, I pitch it to grant contest or grant makers. So grant makers are organizations, philanthropic organizations, which have the mission of supporting investigative journalism. So they have calls with specific deadlines every year. Sometimes they are thematic, sometimes they are open to every topic. And then journalists, they can submit their projects, and the grant maker chooses the project that considers the most interesting and feasible. And then if you're lucky, you get the money. So the pro is that if you win, you're really going to get a lot of money. And if you don't win, you're just wasting your time. Sometimes it also happens to me. So which is the model which works better for you? Well, if you are an adrenalitic guy who wants to be all the time on the headlines, covering breaking news every day, you want to feel the excitement of going after the last news and everything. So maybe the news-based model is for you. Of course, you are going to get less money for a story, so you need to work and produce many stories every day or every week. And the pro is that you have specific deadlines which are set by editors. You don't need to bother too much about time planning. When the deadline is there, the only thing you need to do is stress out and keep an eye on the watch, and then filing your stories before it's too late. And you can cover many topics. So if you get bored with one topic, you can cover many topics depending on the news. The cause is that you have less time to do research, to check the information. So sometimes the quality is not as good, and you're going to get lower expertise. So you're not going to be a specialist in anything. You're going to be kind of a multi-topic journalist. Project-based journalist. You have more money provided that you win the grant, and then you can slow down. Once you get the grant, you can slow down your working pace, meaning that you have much more time to dedicate to the research. You can increase your quality, you can expand your leads everywhere, and you're going to enjoy your time while actually becoming an expert and producing the most accurate story you want to have. Of course, it's going to be time consuming, meaning that you need to plan your schedule. You don't have editor telling you and calling you, listen, you need to find the story. It's you who need to be self-responsible, disciplined, and set your milestones so that you're going to do research and be sure that you're going to publish the story at the deadline that you agreed with your founder. The other cons is that you have lower topic diversification. So I mean, if you like to be eclectic, then maybe that's not the good model for you. You're going to do maybe 3-4 projects per year on covering 3-4 topics. Maybe you want to have much more diversification in your life, so it's up to you. But you're going to get much more expertise, and you're going to become an expert and a reference for your mid editor. When they want a story from you, they know that you're going to produce the best story on that specific topic. You're going to build your reputation. So how to win a grant? That's a question that probably most of you would like to ask, so I anticipate you. So you need to be very convincing. When you're submitting a project, you need to be very clear with your objective. You cannot propose a topic like, I want to investigate COVID. No, you're going to submit a story saying, I want to investigate how big pharmaceutical companies try to get maximize profits from selling vaccine through lobbying on the European Commission, for example. That's a very clear topic. Then your topic needs to be relevant. Okay, it needs to be somehow exposing wrongdoings or issues which have a public importance. Then you need to show that you have done preliminary research. Your research needs to show that you're really digging hard. You have a methodology, and you already found out some hints which give an indication that your story is feasible. That you just need to gather evidence to prove the hypothesis that you already done your preliminary research. Okay, they'll not give you the money just to start your research. They will give you the money to gather the evidence to prove the hints that you already put on the table. Then you need to have a killing evidence gathering plan. You need to show exactly which are the stages for which you are going to gather all the evidence to prove your hypothesis. And again, you need to show that you are the best at doing this story. You are a specialist. You have everything in your background. You know the topics, the technicalities, everything. Of course, you need to produce a project. You need to type the project in a way that it already shows that you can write in a compelling way, right? So when you write the project, just think that you're going to you're writing the final story, the outcome, the output. The jury wants to see that you are going to tell the story in an exciting way for readers. And then you need to share a consistent budget. So you don't need to overestimate or underestimate your expenses based on different activities you're going to do. Then you need to show that you have access to sources, you have collaborators who can help you in a situation, in regions, locations where you don't have direct access, that you have partners, for example, research centers, NGOs, consultants that are specialists that will provide you with the evidence you need. If it's a local or international story, you need to show that you can provide a very specific angle or a wider global angle. And if you're going to cover a global story, you need to show that you have a cross-border team, meaning that you can partner with collaborators, journalists in other countries, which will help you to gather information on the field, because you cannot travel everywhere, as you know, mostly in COVID times due to the travel restrictions. And then, very important, you need to prove that your story is going to be disseminated. You're going to maximize the distribution of the story, so then the grant maker can go back to its founders and say, you see, I founded this journalist. He produced lots of stories on the many media. Now you see that I'm using your money to subsidize stories which have a wide audience. So then the founder of your grant maker is going to give even more money to your grant maker, and grant maker is going to be happy and grateful to you, and maybe give you more money at the next application. Then you need to have a commission letter from media outlets, editors, to prove that you have contacts and you're going to publish the story. And you need to have a specific time frame. You say that you're going to publish the story in 6 months, 1 year, but not 10 years, 20 years, right? Otherwise, it's no longer news, but it's a book or encyclopedia. Then when you have a project ongoing, you already have to think about the next project, right? You don't have to wait until your funding is over and you have empty pocket again. So you need to check regularly for new grants, and I share with you a couple of links. The Journalist Fund is the largest grant maker for journalists, investigative journalists in Europe, based in Brussels, where I am now. The Pulitzer Center is in the US. Both of them, they have different rounds for application throughout the year, to which you can submit different kind of projects, and they really want to have collaborative projects. So be sure that you have collaborators across board. EGNet has an interesting newsletter to which you can subscribe, and you have lots of opportunities, grant making opportunities, everything. I get most of my information on the new application rounds there. Then you need to pilot projects. I mean, you become a specialist on different topics, so you continue your research anyway. You need to create new projects based on your research topics all the time. And it seems like an impossible mission, impossible. But when you become a specialist, you understand the new leads, new possible topics so fast, then your continuous, ongoing, endless research always ends up into embryonal or projects pitches. Then, for example, you can match your research with the new grants which are coming. So, for example, you research a specific topic, there is a new grant which is giving out money for projects on these specific topics. And yes, you're going to match the research you have done, which you seem to be useless until that moment. But then you have a grant which wants exactly project on that specific project, that specific topic that you research. Well, that's the time to go. Then you can basically submit the same project to different grant making calls. It happens to me that I win a grant, then there is another grant covering the same topic, so I submit exactly the same project, and then you create what they call the snowball effect. I mean, you move from grant to grant until basically with one unique project, you can basically boost and cash a lot of money. You can upgrade old projects with new needs. So the old project, which has already been funded, so the research has already been funded, can become a new project that you can submit. You need to blog to grant makers, you need to show that you are doing research, that you publish stories. You need to blog, even share stories with new grant makers, so they know that you already have a track record, a history of winning grants. So you have already kind of reliable and you have a reputation. So they know that the way you're going to submit a project to their calls, you are not a newcomer. You are someone who has already won grants from other grant makers. Some examples of projects funded that I've done recently. One is on COVID, which was funded by a call, which is going to be again open in July. It's called Investigative for the EU. So check it out. It's the deadline is July 15. Then you have a project on a cross-border project that I did with journalists from Sierra Leone. Basically, we tracked down the illegal fishing activities of Italian vessels, which are fishing in a restricted area off the coast of Sierra Leone. Very time-consuming, very rewarding. The shipping companies in Italy, they went bankrupt because nobody wanted to buy fish from them anymore after my story was out. I like fish, so unfortunately I need to buy the fish from other shops. And then you have a couple of stories that I produced for my network, which is the European Data Journalist Network, which is a platform affiliating different media outlets with share and co-produce stories based on data. So they also have a small fund, internal fund. So they subsidize these two stories, one on the lobbying of big tobacco in the EU, one on palm oil-driven deforestation in Indonesia. So if you feel like that you are wasting a lot of time to produce stories which are not well paid by your editors, then you can email me. I will give you some tips on how to move from a news-based to project-based journalism. We can also collaborate. You have ideas. We can try to do projects together and make mutually happy through earning more money. So now open for questions.
Hi, Stefano. Ciao. Thank you so much for your presentation. We start with the questions and answers now. And there is a question that the son of the attendees are asking in the chat. That is this one that Michelle wrote. So do you need a news outlet to commission you before you apply to the grant?
Yeah, sure. If you attach editors' letters, you really have 50% more chances to win. Yes, because you give guarantee that you are going to publish the story, you are going to give credit, you are going to increase the visibility of your grant maker towards its own funders. Yes, sure.
We have here another question from Sylvie. Hi, Stefano. What trending stories could you advise that might be worthy for grant?
Well, one of the stories that were fun that I shared with you was about COVID. For sure, COVID, the pandemic, that's the issue now. But it's also over-reported, so you may have difficulties to find the new leads. But I think that I think what is trending now is actually investigate the flaws, the loopholes in our economic and production system, which is contributing to ecological disasters, public health crisis, climate change. I think those long-term topics, which were relegated to short news in the past, now due to climate change movement, through the pandemic, now they become very important. So I think that you should invest time to do research on these, let's say, long-term public interest issues, where you can expose the conflict between the lobbying, which are trying to keep the status quo, which are trying to slow down innovation and the transition to a more sustainable and a more healthy economic system. And this is the kind of story that actually work well for project-based journalists, because they are not breaking news. You're not going to compete in the arena of daily reporters. This is the kind of project which takes time, which is time consuming, that need to be researched. And you always find a hook in the news, basically, that will give you the pretext to publish your final stories. Everybody's going to talk about health crisis and ecological crisis, climate change over the next 100, 200 years. Maybe we're not going to live so long, but we have a lot of time, long time to work.
We have here one question from Tomas Caucheiro. Tomas says, quite often the grants I find are for institutions or for groups. Working as a freelancer for a journalist, could you advise some sites to be up to date with grants for a smaller project?
So I work as a freelancer, so I'm a kind of one-man team, but usually when I submit my grants, I have names of collaborators in the team. Sometimes those collaborators, they only help you with a little bit, but having them on your project is very important, because you show that you are basically you have skills in managing a team, so managing projects, and you show that you can have people that work and support you and do part of the research with you when you don't have access to information. So what is important, really build up the team, and then if you have colleagues or friends that work in journalism, you just tell them, can I put your names? Then you give me a little bit of help. But building up a team on paper is very important. Grants for small projects. Well, all the grants that I mentioned, the Pulitzer Center and the Journalist Fund, they provide grants of different size. If you have a big project, a large cross-border project which involves a big team with 3-4 journalists in different countries, then of course you can ask for more money. If you have just one with other colleagues somewhere else, then you can submit a project with a smaller budget. So it doesn't really depend on the grant making organization. It really depends on the kind of projects and the budget, the money you need to compete.
We have one question from Vinita that comes from Nepal. So how can freelancers from Nepal be more relevant and resonate in the global stage? We're a small Himalayan nation and there are tough international priorities we must align to.
Well, this question really grabs my heart, because I went to Nepal and I visited Himalaya and I love it. So I'm not very objective on this question. The Himalaya is very important. I mean, it's it's called the third pole on the Earth. As you know, it's considered one of the largest ice water storage on Earth. ice melting in the Himalaya can basically has an impact which goes well beyond the border of your country. And so I think that there is a lot of room for environmental reporting in Himalaya. I mean, there are also dam projects on the border with India, China, which create issues for access to water in downstream communities and safety in case of a break of a dam. So I think from environmental perspective and the community rights perspective, there is a lot to do in Nepal. Of course, if you want to have access to international media, then what I suggest is that you get in touch with a reporter in the Western world, like Europe and US, and you create a project cross-border together with him, and then you pitch it individually to different grant makers. There are grant makers which give money only to reporters in developing countries, and Nepal is one of those. Other grant makers, they give money to international projects. So, for example, you could create your project with an international reporter, and then you pitch individually. He will pitch to the international grant, you will pitch to the regional grant, and if you are really successful, you get the money, both of you, and then you are going to invite me to have some champagne for my advice. And
and you will deserve it. We have time for one last. Or we don't have, Anna.
Yes, I think we have time for the last question. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, came in right now. It's from Macari. Could you recommend how we can find and identify organizations that award grants and where to start?
So in one of the slides, I can put it back if you want, or maybe you can share my slides with the attendees, right? So one of the slides has a couple of links to the largest grant making organization in Europe and US, Journalist Fund and Pulitzer Center, and the link to a website which has a newsletter which packs together every week all grant opportunities, fellowship, everything. I find most of the information there. So I make sure that my slides are shared so you have these direct links.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stefano, for your time and for your advice here for all the freelance community.
Well, good luck to everyone. And thank you, Anna, for inviting me to the conference. Stay in touch.
Thank you, Stefano. Thank you very much. And yeah, people are asking if we're going to share the slides. Of course, we're going to share the presentations that our speakers use during the whole event. In the slides, you're going to find also the contact of Stefano. He has a lot of experience because during the last years, he has been working using the funding of grants and also creating cross-border teams. So, of course, we invite you to contact him. And now, we were talking about this exactly. I would like to invite you to check the grants and the grants opportunities offered by the Investigative Journalists for Europe, the European Journalism Center, the International Press Institute, and the European Center for Press and Media Freedom. A total of 1.1 million will be available as direct grants for cross-border investigative projects.
Yes, and as you can see, there are two types of grants that might be interesting for freelance journalists. One is the freelancer support scheme, and one is the investigation support scheme. Just a reminder, the deadline for application is the 14th of July, and there will be an Ask Me Anything session with the project managers next week on the 18th. But you can find all the information on the website that I think Angela has already shared in the chat.
Labdien, buenos días, bos días.
Hi, hello.
This is the European Journalism Center.
Since 1992,
we've been helping journalists all over Europe.
Now we ask for your support.
Join the European Journalism Collective.
And with a small donation, you can help us remain independent and sustainable.
So we can continue supporting journalists just like you.
And do even more.
And do even more. And do even more.